Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Faerie Conclave. This is episode 118. I'm your host, Alec. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm super excited to be joined by an extra special guest. It's Davy. How are you doing today, Davy?
Hi, Alec. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing good. It's Saturday afternoon, and I have a nice coffee with me, and I'm just,
lucky.
yeah. I'm excited to be here talking to you about magic.
Hell yeah, me too.
Yes. Okay, so for anyone out there who doesn't know you, will you please introduce yourself and talk about like what you do in the magic community?
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Davy. You can find me everywhere you find your content at Davy F. Jones. Mostly what I do in the magic community is I have a stream where we play games of Commander through Spelltable, and we have chat make us do silly voice. So just like this round, you probably heard this all around the world, because I do talk like that a lot. And no one understands me when I talk this way. There are some goblin interpreters out there. But yes, so this is what I do. I curate a space of gamers who want to have fun, want to play Magic, play Commander, and hang out with friends, and be kind to each other, and have fun and be happy and do silly voice.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I love your streams. I feel like it's so cozy and just very lighthearted, and you always have hilarious people on to play Magic with.
Yes, yeah, and we do a lot of murder.
Yes. lots of murdering.
Yes. The best kind, you know.
Exactly. Which is mono black.
Yes. I do play a lot of mono black. I have 5 mono black commander decks.
Whoa.
And the rest of my decks, I think I have 10 decks in total, and the rest of my decks all have black in it.
I love that so much. People, like listeners of the show, know I love monocolored decks. I think everyone should have more monocolored decks.
Yes.
And I personally, yay, okay, I love that. And I personally also love, like, mono black is my favorite of the 5 to play as a monocolored deck. So I feel like we already have this connection.
Yes. And I think, like, I know that people really like 3-color decks because you get to do, like, more stuff and everything. But I feel like learning 1 color to the core, I would say, is just so fun and refreshing, and like you don't need to go and do the gimmick of the other things, you know. And most of the time you get like lost a little bit in the whole thing of, oh, but now I want a splash of this and I want to do that, and get a little bit too spread out and do a little bit of too much at the same time, which is something that I've discovered as a player when I started playing was my pitfall. I was trying to do a little bit too much of everything. So that's when like I made a huge shift and built more monocolored decks, which was easier and simpler for me and more fun for me. So I know that everyone has their thing and everyone likes what they like, and that's totally fine. That's my gist. That's like, I like monocolored decks. It's easy, it's fun. You get to do shenanigans and different kind of shenanigans too. Like people think that green can do only green stompy, when it can do many other things like infect or poison. Red can only do mono red burn or goblins, when you can do a lot of different things too with red. Same thing applies to black. So I think that the more you explore the color on its like own identity, you get to discover more of it in general too.
I totally agree. I could not have said that better myself. And I feel like also what you said about playing one like monocolored deck isn't like, it doesn't have to be the stereotypical thing that color does. And that's one of my favorite things about monocolored decks, is trying to build one that feels like you're playing a different color. One of my favorites is playing a mono white deck that feels like a blue deck. Like, it's super interactive, and white actually has a few very strong counter spells, and the kind of like Teferi's protection-esque response spells that are, it's just like playing a deck like that feels like you're playing this interactive blue deck, but you're in mono white is just, that's so fun to me. I love that kind of thing.
Totally. That's basically what I love about mono black so much, is because like I have 5 mono black decks and they kind of all do different things all together. So I think that's really great, and that's like the reason why you get to do. You could also have like 5 mono white decks that do different things. Like
Totally.
it's you're not for like by. I feel like it's a little bit like a building with a restriction when you're building in a monocolor, in just one color. Since you don't, if you want to do something, you need to like stay in your color identity and not move away from that. So you need to find a solution or find like what you need to do within your color identity, which I think is super sweet. Honestly, it's basically like building with a companion. Like if you play with a companion, you have a building restriction and you need to stick to it for your gimmick to work. And that's another thing that I really love with Commander and deck building in general with companions, is that if you want to do your thing, you need to stick to your building restriction, and that makes it so much fun and so much different than all of the other precons or other like decks you can find online and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and those kinds of restrictions, like people get so creative about that. I've seen some spicy companion decks that like fit within whatever the restriction is, but are just super creative. And I think, like you said, monocolored decks are really good. Like a very easy tool within the rules of Commander to restrict yourself to.
Yep.
I mean, you're clearly an expert at mono black. Like 5 mono black decks, and then if you go to build a 6th one, it would be so interesting to be like, what can I do with this color that is still different from the other 5 things I've already done?
Haven't done. Yeah, exactly. And I'm still like debating basically something that like another mono black commander deck that I could do.
Ooh.
I don't have a mono black reanimator deck, so that would be interesting to do, to build eventually. So that would be probably in my next to-do list, would be a mono black reanimator, because I do have some reanimation in most of my decks, basically just to return the commander to the battlefield and not having it cost 1 million mana.
Yeah.
But it's not like a reanimator build, just like my Olivia Crimson Bride deck is a reanimator deck. The goal is to get the stuff back out as much as I can. So that is not something that I do have in mono black. So that would be something I would be very interested to do.
Totally. Like you have to work with those restrictions to see what you can do. Because if you already have a black-red reanimator deck, then it'll be fun to also find ways to like spice it up in mono black so that they're different enough, but still both like reanimator strategies.
Yes, and still both like feel like they deserve their place at the table, right?
Yeah. Nice.
So that would be interesting. And a commander that I'm looking at to do that would be Sheree.
Oh, that's a classic. I love Sheree.
I love Sheree, and I love that it's little guys.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting too. So that would be something that I've been interested in building Sheree for a very long time. And I love old commanders. So that would be something that is on my to-do list eventually.
I like it. And that one's also from Kamigawa, isn't it?
Yes, I love Kamigawa.
Me too. Yeah, some of the most iconic commanders are from Kamigawa, the original sets. Yeah. I'm excited to talk about one of those today.
Yes.
So let's get into that. Really quick before we do, I always shout out one of my patrons at the Conclave Mentor patron level. So KG, this episode's dedicated to you. Thank you so much for being a patron. I really appreciate it.
Hello, KG, you rock!
Yes, thank you so much. I need to have you on. I need like sound bites of you on all of my episodes, I think.
I mean, that's also something that I have been doing for people in the community.
Oh,
Like
really?
if you watched Mr. Bever's stream, I do have a sound bit for him. Queen of Cardboard also has a sound bit of me. And I think Anna Thornton also has one. I don't know if she still uses it, but I also made one for her. I don't even have one for mine. But I have one for a lot of people. So just like hit me up with something you would like, and I could whip up something for you for sure.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. I'll DM you later. Sweet. Okay, I am really excited to get into this deck interview. So,
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
let's kick things off with my first question for you, Davy, which is who is the commander of the deck that we're going to be talking about, and what inspired you to build it in the first place?
Yes. All right. So we are talking about Seizan, the pervy boy, today. For those who are not familiar, it is Seizan, Perverter of Truth. It is a legendary creature from Kamigawa. And he reads at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and draws 2 cards for a 6/5, no less. And what made me want to build this deck is I've always been a big fan of Wheels deck and discard synergies. I used to have a Chainer Nightmare Adept deck, which which eventually became Olivia Crimson Bride. But I still wanted to have my kind of wheel and deal type deck. And Seizan has been on my build decks for a really, really long time, at least 5 years. And I always was on the edge of building him because it was giving advantage to my opponents, as well as like it was not only gifting me, it was gifting to everybody. So I was really tempted to build it, but also on the edge because I didn't know how to build it. And one day I played with Unsummoned Skull, J-Ro, and he
Yeah.
played this commander, and his deck was super fun. Honestly, I loved it. He was doing stuff. He was doing everything I wanted to do with this deck. So I messaged him after our game and I was like, please send me the deck list. I am so inspired. I want to do something like that. So this list is inspired by his list. He had a little bit more curses and a little bit more on the painful side of what you can do with Seizan. But a lot of it has been inspired, and I've tweaked it over the years ever since I've had it, because I think I've built this deck 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. Honestly, it's one of my forever decks now. I have it altered, and he's gonna be in my roster forever now. He's my boy. He's my favorite boy.
Yes. That's one of my favorite things about the Commander community is like playing games with people and seeing them play a deck that just wows you. Yeah, and it feels so cool, and you're like, I need to try that out. And then finding that it's a forever deck for you. That's really cool. I love that.
Yes. It was like we were meant to be. Honestly, it was and it's so true. And I think like we oversee a lot of the older commanders because they are not as good as some other newer commanders. Like some people would run this list with Shieldred at the head, and that's totally fine. It would 100% work, but it would be a lot more targeted than having Seizan in the command zone. Just having the switch of commander is also very powerful because you can just, which is one of my ways that I like to play the game and like in general, is like sneak my way to the end. Because like I'm like, oh, I'm giving you gifts, you get cards, and I'm enabling your strategy, and usually, unless I'm playing with people who know what's coming with this deck, usually I get to like not be killed first, and usually I end up like third or second. Sometimes I get to win, but it's not. It's the most of the fun that I have with this deck is just like it keeps on increasing in being dad, for everyone at the table, not just them, but me too, So that's
Yeah.
one of the things I love about this deck.
That's awesome. So a couple of things you said there. One, I really like that you're advocating for older commanders. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is there are just so many new commanders that are really cool that I think, like legendary creatures that came out before 2019, there's still a lot of relatively unexplored types of decks that can be built around older commanders that do things that are different from any other like new commanders that come out.
Yep.
I think like exploring old legendary creatures on Scryfall is something I really enjoy doing. So I love that you feel that way too.
Yeah. I think it also kind of goes into a little bit more of the building restriction still. Because you kind of force yourself into thinking a little bit outside the box, because your commander is not like the powerhouse of the set it came out, or basically just the powerhouse of the deck in general. So that's one of the things that I like with them, is that you get to also like build around it, think about it, and be like, okay, how do I make this work? How can it sit at the table where there is like so many new and strong and powerful commanders?
Right, yeah. And a lot of times that goes to your advantage too. You'll like from the start of the game, people might not target you as much just because your commander doesn't look as scary as a shiny new commander.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But I have played against Seizan decks before, and they should not be underestimated. So.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's a strong deck, but like since it's not as known as a new popular commander, it kind of gives you the sneaky advantage that sometimes just like gives you the edge in a game.
Yeah, which it feels really good. It's like it's nice not to be targeted because of your commander.
Yeah, so. Like if you just switch for Children the Apocalypse, then your commander is never sticking.
Oh,
it
yeah,
never
for sure.
sticks on the table. And like most of the time, Seizan stays on the battlefield. Yes. He does not, because there's a commander who's scarier, who does more things. There's a Coma on the battlefield. Right. We need to get rid of that.
Yeah. Exactly. Voya's over there, Coma. Like, I'm not worried about Seizan.
Yeah.
So good. One thing I love about this card is the art is so cool.
Yes.
By Kev Walker, and it's just like this horrifying demon spirit creature and almost no background. So like you're fully focused on the teeth.
On him. The teeth, the eyes, the like the hands, the fleshy. It's just, I love him, and I'm so happy they reprinted him as well in I think it was in Wilds of Eldraine or Kamigawa, one of them. They did reprint him. They gave him a new art, which makes you see a little bit more of who he is. But he looks so much younger on this art. It was a Multiverse Legends. I think it was
something during Capenna. It looks like it has a Halo foil, which I think was Capenna. Hard to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is interesting. It's like Seizan actually doing something instead of kind of sitting in the mist. But
yeah, honest, and he looks like he destroyed something to get there. Or like he looks so powerful and strong, and it looks crazy.
I like both of these. That one's very much like action-packed art.
Yeah, and also anime, it kind of looks anime too.
Totally. But I
and
appreciate
the other one
the
looks like more like, Japanese art, like Japanese old paintings. It kind of looks like that. And that's something that like I'm very drawn to.
Same. It's a little like, I think it's a little creepier and a little scary too, that it's not like attacking.
It's just like lurking, and he's like protecting something, but you clearly don't want to go there because that guy's gonna eat you up. Like, have you seen all those teeth?
Oh, it's too much. So good. So since you first put this deck together, what is there anything you'd like to talk about in terms of this deck's history?
There hasn't been a lot of alteration to this deck ever since I built him. Most of the history that it has is like upgrades on newer cards that were printed out, you know?
Cool, yeah.
And it's just basically more ping that has been added to this deck, because that's something that I realized, that playing against people who like to draw cards is dangerous. So how you make that to your advantage, you make them hurt every time they draw cards. So what I did is adding things like Orcish Bowmasters. When it came out, that was a auto include in this deck because we wanted to make them hurt. Starscream was also a card that is very weird here in this deck, but it also makes them lose life when they draw a card. And also having enchantment like Underworld Dreams, the creepy lady, Fate Unraveler, made that every time, or Shieldred the Apocalypse, when she came out, of course I had to put her in Seizan, you know. So all of these together making that, yes, I'm giving more cards to my opponents because I run things like Font of Mythos, Howling Mine. Seizan is also enabling that, giving them more card draw. Memory Jar, I'm giving card draw to folks. So what I want is to make them hurt for all the gifts I'm giving to them, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what's basically the history of it. Is like, yes, I want to be a little bit like the creepy guy who stands in the corner, who's not doing too much, so you don't think about murdering him in cold blood. But then as the game progresses, it gets more painful for you to play with the creepy guy in the corner. So that's basically the history of this deck. We started out as like, I just want to hang out. I want you to draw cards and enable your deck to do stuff mostly, because it was more of a, I want you to do your thing, and like it's gonna make the game more explosive for everybody, to like, I still want you to do that, but I kind of want you to hurt a little bit too, you know?
I really like having a commander like this in a game with me, because like you said, I'll get to draw more cards, and that means there's more of a chance of your opponents being able to do their thing, which is something I really like to see in a game of Commander. But also, all of your opponents will be losing life, and you too, I guess, for a lot of these effects. You'll everyone's life totals will slowly be going down because of that. And honestly, I really like that too, because I'm a fan of shorter games that don't take 2 hours per game.
Oh yeah.
And this kind of solves both of those problems. It's like the game will be shorter, but it'll still be exciting, and everyone will have a chance to do cool stuff.
Yes.
So yeah.
That's basically my goal with this deck. Like, it went from a little bit more of gifts to people, with cards like Keen Duelist, or what else did we have in here? We did, well, no, that was not a gift. That was Mind Slicer. We don't run Mind Slicer anymore because that's so mean. But we did run Gix, the Yawgmoth Praetor, to when people attacked someone else. They could draw a card and lose a life. So like, I was giving more gifts, and now I'm just like, you know what? We still give gifts, but we're just, you know, taking a little bit of payment in exchange, and that payment is your blood.
Yes. So okay, interesting. So the deck originally had more like giving your opponents card draw, but is it just because people are drawing their own cards like very quickly already? They don't really need that incentive.
Yep. They don't need that much help anymore, and we needed more ways to end the game, you know? So, and make the game progress. So the way of doing that was to make them hurt a little bit more.
So we talked a little bit already about how like this deck could make games shorter and everyone can kind of do their thing. Is there anything else you'd like to mention when it comes to just like, what do you like most about playing this deck that makes it a forever deck?
So I have a meme that I
Ooh.
associate with this deck, and that's basically what I tell people when I talk about this deck. Let me send it to you in our conversation.
Okay,
But
yes,
that
please.
I like I said before in this interview a couple of times, like the game gets tougher, like gets worse as we progress through it, you know?
Yeah.
And the meme that I have, I call it the little guy that goes down the slide, because it's a 4-image meme where he goes down the slide and he's like, okay, that's fine. Oh no, that's a bit fast. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Ah! So what I like is that eventually as the game progresses, I'm like, okay, so we're now at this stage of the game. Oh, now we're at this stage. Oh, now you need to kill me now because like you're all gonna die. So I really like to refer to this meme template with with this deck because it literally feels like that. Like it starts fine, and then the more it goes on, the worse it gets.
Yes.
And people like to call it the bad Santa deck as well because it gives bad gifts. You know, you get cards, but it's painful.
It hurts. Yeah.
It hurts.
I love this. Okay, using a classic meme to describe your deck's like gameplay pattern is so funny to me. I love that. That's so good.
Like if I could add the image in Moxfield as it would be my primer. Like it would literally be my primer. It'd be just like, here it is. You don't need to know anything else.
It's so true too. Like if you have your commander out and you've also gotten a couple of these other scary, like painful cards like Underworld Dreams or Wound Reflection, how do your opponents stop you? It's like enchantments and creatures. They can try to board wipe all of those things, I guess, but they probably are just going to have to try to kill you to survive.
Yes. Well, the major weakness of this deck would be constant removal of the commander. Because he gets the game rolling for me and for others. So of course, if I cannot cast my commander, things are not going well. There are creatures in here, but you know I don't have tokens. The creatures I have are not sack fodder. So if you also attack, like if I play against a token deck who goes wide, that is also like a weakness. I don't have a lot of blockers, and my creatures are key creatures. So also that is a weakness for the Seizan player. When you're playing this deck, you really want to try to not look scary early on, so you don't get taken out fast. Because as their game is gonna progress, you're gonna develop a little bit more of your enchantments and hopefully protect yourself. There is one enchantment in here that is Koskin Falls. It is a propaganda, but mono black, which is a protection for us. We also have Cunning Rhetoric, which is another kind of sort of protection if people don't want their cards stolen. That can deter attacks. So like there we do have a little bit of that, but like on the creature side, I'm very weak to flyers as well. So like if I'm playing against angels, if I cannot like disrupt their game plan, I will go down very fast. We have 4 flyers total in this deck, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 flyers, but like there's 2 of them that don't want to block and cannot really block anything. So like that's another weakness that we have.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. And I did notice looking at this list that you have a very responsible amount of lands and mana ramp. Yeah. And that totally makes sense because it is rough when you have a 5-mana commander that gets killed and then you have to spend 7 or even 9. That's so difficult. But yeah, if you need Seizan out to kind of get the ball rolling on all of the other stuff, it makes sense that you have so much mana to be able to try to recast him.
Yes. I do run some draw spells. I would need to run more, but if we can keep Seizan out, we're good on card draw. But there definitely would be a need for a bit more card draw. Because, yes, I do have this lovely, wonderful, pretty Peer into the Abyss. I have casted it on myself 0 times.
I love that. Yeah. It's a
It's
kill
my favorite
spell.
kill spell.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, oh, I need you out of this game. Here, draw 1,000,000 cards and die.
That's so good. Speaking about incredible art, also, Peer into the Abyss.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So much going on.
Yes.
A thing that kind of outsets a little bit of those weaknesses is how much life I could potentially gain with this deck.
Okay.
There's some sneaky life gain in here with Sangromancer, which is like I don't have a lot of discard cards that make people discard, but if they are drawing so many cards, they are bound to discard.
Yeah.
So Sangromancer gains me 3 life per card discarded by an opponent. So that's like chef's kiss.
Very good. Yeah.
Yes, we do have a Great Merchant of Asphodel, and we have a bunch of devotion cards. Children of the Apocalypse, if she gets to stick around, she gets us some life gain as well. Nighthawk Scavenger is also a very good blocker with lifelink. So, like, we do have some decent ways to gain some life.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind for mono black decks is, especially if you're using so much life to pay for all of these other effects.
Yes, you need to gain some back.
Totally. Yeah, that's really smart. I'm also a huge fan of Nighthawk Scavenger. So anytime I see that in a deck, I'm like, yes, let's go.
Such a good boy. The best boy.
For real.
For real, though. Like.
Yeah, and that also does help a lot with the issue of having difficulty blocking other opponents with, especially with flyers. It solves all of those problems.
Solves all of them, yes.
So do you have any notable cards in this deck that we haven't shouted out yet that are just like perfect in this deck that you'd like to talk about?
I would say Painful Quandary is like the bane of a lot of people's existence playing against Seizan. I like this synergy of Painful Quandary and cards like Liliana's Caress, Megrim, and Raider's Wake. Or even like Oppression. These cards synergizes very well together. Oppression, every time a player plays a card, they have to discard. And if they discard, they do have some damage to take. And Painful Quandary, they have the option of either losing 5 life or discarding a card whenever they successfully cast a spell. So if you have a combination of Painful Quandary and Liliana's Caress or Megrim or Raider's Wake, they kind of like have to consider their thing, you know, their decision. So Painful Quandary, Oppression are cards that if I drop them, I want this game to end. You know, I established myself as the problem if it was not clear enough before. And I'm like, you know what? We need to wrap this shit up, people. We need to do something. Waste Not is also a lovely card in here because it gets us a little bit more value out of the discard shenanigans that we have. Having to either have a 2/2 zombie, which is the only way we can have Sackfather or blockers, basically, is the Waste Not. Having more cards or having mana that we can use to either draw cards with our lands or do other shenanigans. I don't think I have any other activated ability despite those. But yes, these are very good enchantments and cards that I need to have a little bit more in this deck if I want to be more of a problem is cards like Iron Maiden.
Oh,
Iron
so
Maiden
rude.
makes my opponent lose 1 life per card more than 4 in their hand. So if they have been drawing at upkeep a bunch of cards, then this triggers and they have to take a bunch of damage.
So good. That is perfect for this deck. Wow.
It's so perfect. I like being able to use bad or weird cards and putting them in a deck, and that works perfectly. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that's so good.
It's really cool. That's one of my favorite things about Commander deck building is how can I sneak in some like weird obscure card from 20 years ago that nobody plays. And Iron Maiden is exactly like that.
Yes, I need to find a slot for Ebony Owl Netsuke, which is basically a second Iron Maiden.
Oh, cool. I love this. It's kind of like a lose-lose scenario for your opponents. It's like, well, do I draw cards and now I'm being forced to discard cards? Should I lose 5 life or discard another card and like lose 2 life or something? You're just like adding more pieces to the board that make it worse and worse. So
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah, establishing yourself as the problem is the perfect way to describe that.
I love being the problem.
It's fun, right? Like you got to embrace it.
Yes.
Okay, what would you say is the MVP card in this deck? Like the most synergistic card that you love to see?
I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but that's basically my favorite. Like when I see this card, I just smile. It's the Peer into the Abyss. I think it's the MVP of this deck because once all of the pieces of the puzzle are together, this is basically murder for someone, you know?
Yeah.
So that's probably like the most powerful card in this deck. And synergizes very well with everything else. And I like that it potentially has the flexibility of making me draw a bunch of cards, you know?
True.
It won't. Usually I don't play that for my side, but that's probably the MVP. That or Cabal Coffers, you know, because
oh yeah,
you know.
Of course. We're 40 minutes in, we haven't mentioned Cabal Coffers yet.
Look, I almost talked about it every single time, but I was like, okay, we need to find something else to talk about, Davy. Like, it cannot be Cabal Coffers all the time.
Fair enough. But okay, now's the time. And I also totally forgot to say like earlier that I met you in MagicCon Vegas earlier this year. And one of the days at Vegas, you had a Cabal Coffers cosplay. Yes. And I'm like, I'm not talking about like a character in the art of Cabal Coffers. I'm talking about like the actual Magic card Cabal Coffers. And I thought that was so good. So good.
That's the funniest thing I've done all year. Like that's the highlight of my year so much because it was so easy to make. It didn't cost me any, like, it cost me the cardboard basically, and that's it. And everybody was happy and smiling, and when they saw the Cabal Coffers, they were like, hell yeah, this is so fun. Even people who don't know me were like, oh yeah, this is cool. And it just made me happy the whole day.
Yeah, it was iconic.
Oh my god, yes. For real though, for real.
Yeah, and so to talk about this deck with Cabal Coffers, like mono black decks definitely have the potential to do lots of different spicy things, but you should probably be playing a Cabal Coffers in pretty much every single one.
Yes.
Like it's and people talk about how green is the best at mana ramp, but nothing feels better than having a bunch of swamps, a Cabal Coffers out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You'll just have all the mana that you need.
Oh yeah. Mono black is also very good at devotion. Like
yes.
I didn't play a lot of standard in my life, but when I did play mono black devotion in Theros.
Ooh,
Beyond
yes.
So Nykthos is also a really, really good land for people who play mono black, because you're gonna have so much like enchantments with 3 black pips, or creatures with 3 black pips, or 2 even, and that makes it so worth it. That yes, green is good at putting more lands on the battlefield, but black has powerful lands, like very powerful lands.
It's true. Yeah, and I see that you have Expedition Map in here as well, so you have ways to go find Cabal Coffers or Nykthos.
Yep. And I need an Urza's Cave. People keep telling me that I need an Urza's Cave. I need one. It's just that my store is sold out.
I have some cards like that too. I'm like, every time I check my local game store, they have 0 copies, but someday, it's like been a year since the set came out. I'm like, someday it'll happen.
Yeah.
I mean, usually I would ask about what your favorite pet cards are in this deck, but we might have just talked about them. But do you have any others?
My God, there's like this deck is basically a deck of my pet cards.
Oh, cool, yeah.
But I haven't talked about Sir Conrad at all, which doesn't fit in this deck at all. The only reason he's here is because if people discard creatures when they're discarding, they take damage.
Oh.
That's the only reason.
That's really good. So then, yeah, I hadn't really thought of Sir Conrad as like a wheel punishing type of card, but he totally is.
He totally is, because it's from anywhere other than... No, it's not. It's just anywhere. So when people discard, they also have to think about, oh, am I discarding a creature? Am I going to take damage from that? So like he's not what you think about when you think about building a Seizan deck or a discard deck, but he's in here because like he's my boy. I love Sir Conrad very, very much. He's one of my pet cards that even if he would be bad in like the synergy of the deck, I would still put him in because I love it. I love him. So that's a bit of a reason why he's here, but he's also like, he's good too. Like if people want to board wipe, they're gonna take damage. If people want to they will have to discard eventually. So if they discard, they're gonna take damage. So it's just like Pain City over here.
That's really cool, and I bet it's pretty fun to, like, if an opponent has to discard a bunch of cards, Sir Conrad deals damage to each of your opponents. Yes. So that opponent
or
could
what
be
they're
like,
discarding. Yep.
Right. So maybe that opponent has more life than one of your other opponents. So they're like, yeah, I'll discard 4 creatures and we'll each take 4, but I'm the highest right now. So yeah, I bet it could get pretty interesting, like gameplay wise.
Definitely. Very, very much. Yes.
Nice. Okay. So I'm excited for this. What has been your favorite in-game moment that you've had while you were playing this deck?
It was definitely... like there was a game I remember specifically on my stream where I had pieces already on the field for Pain on draw, and one of my opponents was popping off, and there was no way for us to attack him because he had too many blockers, and we couldn't get rid of that person like through combat. I drew a tutor, I think it was Grim Tutor that I drew. So I Grim Tutored 4 Peer into the Abyss, and I made them draw half their deck and lose half their life, and the process of doing that made them lose the rest of their life. So we basically, we solved the problem through player removal.
Yes.
Which, like, I don't even remember who won that game. I just remember that that's what I did because we needed a solution, and that was the solution to this problem. I think I was taking out after that because like I was being a problem too. But that was the moment that I was like, oh yeah. I think I had just put Peer into the Abyss in the deck too, and I was like, oh yeah, this card is staying in. It's a kill spell. I love it so much. And it was so unexpected too. Like people were not expecting Peer into the Abyss, and I was able to do that because I had a Cabal Coffers and I had an Urborg, and I was able to generate, because like Peer into the Abyss is 7 mana, Grim Tutor is 3 mana, so that was 11 mana, and I think I had just enough. So I had just enough to Grim Tutor and then Peer into the Abyss and eliminate that player.
Nice.
So that was just like a big like, woo, yeah, moment.
That's so cool too, that like I feel like decks like this that are like dealing damage for drawing cards, dealing damage for discarding, things like that, you usually kind of expect it to be a slow burn. Like my opponents will slowly be losing their life, but they can kind of like expect that. Yeah. Whereas Peer into the Abyss is not that. It's just out of nowhere. If I have any of these cards out that deal damage to you for drawing or discarding, here's 7 mana and you die. Like in one hit.
Yep.
Laser beam style.
I need to take you out. You need to go. You're a problem here.
Yeah.
Here's the door. Bye.
That's so good. I think it is important to have cards like that in this deck, so that if somebody is out of reach for some reason, like in this scenario, you just have a way to like, nope, actually I'm just gonna go straight for your library, and that'll do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's so fun. Nice. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. So what advice would you give to players out there who are interested in building a Seizan deck of their own?
I would say there's many ways that you can build Seizan. You can go like I did on the draw and pain way. You can also build Seizan with discard more in mind, with discard cards, which is a little bit of what I did at first. So I would say like find a synergy and strategy that you like, because you can go 2 ways with this commander. You can make a mix of both too, if that works for you. But I would say like have fun with it. It's honestly such a fun commander. Mono black is such a fun color. So there's many ways you can do that. Also, I think it's a deck that is like, since it draws you cards, you can a little bit ease more into, I would like to be less meta, less powerful, put more of my pet cards in here and have fun. I think it's a commander that gives you the opportunity to do that, since it's drawing you cards already. You're gonna want to put more cards drawn there, so that's gonna make it easier for you to kind of put the lesser powerful cards, because you have a draw engine in the command zone, right? So that would be a little bit more of my advice for you, is like have fun. If you want to put pet cards in here, go ahead and do that. I think it would be less punishing as it would be with another commander, because like you're not gonna have a commander that people are gonna remove the second it enters the battlefield. So you get a little bit more of a breathing room too, to kind of do your thing and like hang out and be a little guy and
Yeah.
Just be a little gal.
Yes, exactly. So, okay, I was already super into this deck, but that definitely makes me want to build it, because any commander that supports a deck that lets me play worse cards is something I'm interested in. I feel like a lot of newer decks I've been building lately, they feel like they have to be pretty... like they have to be put together, and I don't necessarily have room for like 5 pet cards that don't do something like really synergistic, so yeah. And
like if you look at my deck list, like there is cards like Wandering Archaic is not doing anything in this deck particularly to help with the synergy, but it's a really cool card and I like it, so I put it in there. Yawgmoth, I don't have sacrifice creatures. I don't have creatures to sacrifice, but I love this card, so I put it in there and it makes me happy. So like, yes, it's a strong card. Does it fit with the synergy? Not at all. Not at all. So like, it's just a fun card to have. Children, the Whispering One is a good card. It's not though like working with this synergy of drawing and discarding. It's just like a good a cool card that I like. Like, there is cards in here that work with the synergy, but there are others that are just like, they're here because I want them to be in here. What I like most about him is that he's not threat number 1. The second you sit down at the table and you're like, oh, I'm going to play Seizan. We're going to draw cards. We're going to discard cards. It's going to enable you to do a little bit more of your thing. I'm going to I'm going to ping you for cards you draw, It's gonna be a fun ride, and people are like, "Oh, okay, let's get into it then." And if you're sitting at the table and you have Shieldred the Apocalypse instead, they're gonna be like, "Oh shit, okay, so you're enemy number 1."
Yep. We haven't even started the game. I'm already targeting you.
Yeah, and it's like, honestly, I've done the switch. I've done for higher power games that we did. I did switch Shieldred for Seizan. I did the switch, and the reception of the table was so much different with just a switch. This deck is the same. I don't change anything, but I sit down with Shieldred instead of Seizan. Like I'm not even getting to play this game. Like I'm not playing because my commander
Yeah.
is children. I'm like, okay, but if my commander is Seizan, oh, let's give the little kid in the sandbox a little bit of breathing room there. We're gonna let them like do their thing a little bit, and then later on they're like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
What have we done? We're wrong on the ball. Yes, yes, yes.
Exactly. Yeah, and one thing that I keep thinking about is like you'll be drawing 3 cards per turn. Seizan gives you 2 extra cards plus your normal draw. That's just so many cards.
Oh yeah,
And
that is a lot.
yeah, and if like 1 or 2 of them are pet cards that you draw, but it's like not a great time to play them, you're like, ooh, I don't really want this right now. You'll probably be fine because you're drawing 3 cards per turn.
You're drawing 3 cards per turn. So it's
Yeah.
like, also, you don't feel as bad if your top deck is bad because you have 2 extra cards to draw too.
Yeah.
So like, it's
Feels
also
good.
yeah, it feels good. I don't know. It's a feels good deck.
Totally.
It really feels good deck. So
And that's
like every time I pop it out, I'm like, woohoo!
And that's exactly what I look for in a deck is, does it feel good? Is it like fun for my opponents to play against? Does it speed up the game a little bit?
Yep.
And this does all of the above.
Hell
Sweet.
yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Davy, for coming on and letting me ask you a whole bunch of questions about your favorite deck. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I don't often have the opportunity to gush about my little pervy guy, but when I do, I love to do it. And like, I'm always up for also like comments and suggestions to like from other players. So like that would be amazing as well to have like more ideas because like this deck's super fun. A thing that I didn't say also is that it has encouraged at least one more person to play Seizan, to build Seizan. Someone in my community was looking to build their first mono black commander deck, and they didn't want to do the typical black thing. And I was like, well, have you looked at Seizan? And I showed them the deck list, and they were already like in love with it. So they built their own Seizan. They made their adjustments to it and to make it more of their liking too, and more with their playstyle. And I was like, oh, it's so nice. We pollute people with our pervy guy. Let's go.
Isn't that the best feeling though? Like you got to continue the cycle and had an impact on somebody, and now they have a whole commander deck that was inspired by yours. That's really cool.
Yes, it's a really cool feeling. So I was really happy.
That's awesome. So if anyone out there wants to like get in touch with you to chat about Seizan or give suggestions or things like that, where is it that they can find you?
So you can reach me on I'm more active on Blue Sky, so you can find me over there. I will be more better with DMs. But other than that, you can find me on Discord, Instagram, TikTok if I remember to use this app one day in my life. Such a hard platform. My account is still on Twitter, but I don't use it anymore. So definitely, like, if you want to get in touch, I would recommend Blue Sky 100%.
Perfect. Yeah, and definitely go drop a sub on Davy's Twitch channel. Yes, which I have linked in the episode description, so you can just go check that out, and all those other links as well.
Hello.
Hell yeah. Sweet. Okay, yeah, I think it's time we wrap things up. So yeah, one last thank you so much, Davy, for coming on and chatting with me about Magic for an hour. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, always a pleasure.
Yes. Yeah, and I can't wait to see your Cabal Coffers cosplay in the future.
Oh yeah, I think it's gonna come with me every time now.
So good. Sweet. Okay, yeah, thank you everyone out there for listening. And as we wrap things up, I always shout out all of my patrons at the All That Glitters level. So I currently have one, and it's Jeff. Jeff, thank you so much for being a patron and for so long. I really appreciate it.
Hello, Jeff, you're amazing!
I could not think of a better way to end the episode. So thank you everybody for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.